Okay, so today focusing on intellectual disability, learning and communication disorders in childhood and adolescence. Okay, so intellectual disability used to be called mental retardation, is not anymore. Now the name has changed to intellectual disability. And with intellectual disability, there are a number of criteria that need to be met. So first, deficit in intellectual functioning. Intellectual functioning is measured by performance on an IQ test, such as one of the Wechsler scales, so the Wechsler Adult Intelligence Scale, the Wechsler Intelligence Scale for Children that we talked about in the assessment chapter, or on the Stanford-Binet, something like that. And functioning is significantly below average, so this is defined as 70 or below on an IQ test. However, that is not the sole criterion that is used, okay? So that's just one piece of the puzzle. So intellectual functioning below 70. There also needs to be some kind of impairment in adaptive behavior. So for an individual to get this diagnosis of intellectual disability, they have to have some kind of problem in communicating with other people, in caring for themselves, in living at home, or in interpersonal skills. So some kind of impairment in adaptive behavior. And then finally, the onset has to happen before the age of 18. So if onset happens after the age of 18, then the problem with intellectual disability is not given as a diagnosis. You would give someone a diagnosis of something about brain injury or something like that. The diagnosis would not be intellectual disability. Disorders of learning and communication, so disorders with reading, dyslexia, so individuals who have this read slowly, they have poor comprehension, they might drop, substitute, or distort words, perhaps by moving around the letters and words that changes the meaning. Disorders of written expression, so we can see this in a number of different ways, such as problems with organizing a paragraph, problems with spelling, grammar, punctuation, or their handwriting might be really, really hard to read. The common thread here is that these children who have these disabilities are not performing at the level that they should be in school, and so they require special attention. Additionally, with these learning and communication disorders, we don't see the diagnosis of these usually until the child begins school, when these particular skills become very, very important. And it becomes very easy to see that this child is not performing at a similar level compared to this child's peers. We can have problems with math as well, so mathematics disorder, dyscalculia, and this can be failure to understand concepts, to recognize symbols, or to remember operations. Communication disorders, so this is problems with speech, problems with speaking later, so delayed speech, problems with articulation, so this can be pronouncing words, pronouncing sounds, difficulties with expressive language. Expressive language is your spoken communication, and then delays in receptive language. So difficulty understanding what other people are saying. We can also have problems with stuttering. So this is basically in the fluency of the child's speech. So children who stutter, this is actually a pretty common experience, but about 50% of children outgrow these language problems by adolescence, and stuttering peaks at about age 5. Most children recover. It's considered part of normal development. 80% of children who stutter before the age of 5 no longer stutter when they begin attending school. So if you have a young child who is stuttering, for the most part, kids are going to grow out of it. Sometimes kids are just really, really excited and they want to, get out every word that's in there, and they have a difficult time doing that. So pause this, read this case study, and we'll apply it to understanding autism. Okay, so autism, kids who have what are called autism spectrum disorders, we can think of this as a continuum, but kids who fall on this continuum have impairment in social functioning in some way. Children who qualify for the diagnosis of autism have impairment in social interaction. meaning they're extremely unresponsive to others, they're uncommunicative, they show repetitive and rigid or restricted interests. So they're interested in only a very finite, amount of things. Their language and communication problems, these are also common. About half fail to speak or develop language skills. Common speech problems include things like echolalia, so this is repeating what other people say, or problems with naming objects. They have limited imaginative play, so they don't include other people in their play. They tend to play alone, and they use the same objects over and over and over again. They're very upset by minor changes in routine, and oftentimes they're fascinated by movement. So these kids might spend hours, watching a fan go around in a circle. They're fascinated by that repetitive movement. Oftentimes they engage in self-stimulating behaviors, so this can include things like arm flapping. Sometimes the self-stim behaviors are injurious as well, so these kids might bang their head against the wall. That's why sometimes you see these kids wearing helmets and stuff like that. They also have impairment in what's called joint attention. They don't engage others in social interactions or communication. So they don't often make eye contact. If they're trying to, get someone to do something for them, they might see the other person just simply as a pawn. So they might grab someone's hand and without making any eye contact, use that person's hand to get them what they want.